Hi darlings, welcome back to my channel Style by C. Today's tutorial will be on how to make a short pant with zip fly in front and side pockets. So stay tuned. Shorts now with no pattern. We are drawing it on this material. So the first thing I marked was I marked 1 inch below here. Alright, this is my seam allowance. Then I placed my tape to mark the full length of my short pants. So the full length of my short is 18 inches. I did -1 to 18 inches. This is from my -1 now to 18 inches. The next thing I'll be marking is my hip line. So from -1, I'll get 8 inches, which is my hip line. And from -1, I'll get to 12 inches, which is my lap line. Alright? You can decide to mark both of them, the lines across. Now the next thing we are going to be doing now is we are going to divide our hip measurements by 4. So whatever you have, quarter of your hip measurements you are working with, you divide it by 4. So for mine, I have 11.5. So this is 11.5. I'll be adding 1 inch to it, making it 12.5. I'll mark it here. I'll also come to the waistline and mark it. I'll do the same thing to the lap line. Then I'll connect the points together. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is my waist measurements. What's your waist measurement? You also divide it by 4 to get a quarter of it. So my waist measurements now, I have 9. I'll be adding extra 1 inch to it, making it 10 inches. Alright, now I'm going to be connecting it to my hip line. I've connected my waist to my hip. Then I'm also going to connect it to my lap down. Then coming to these center points now, I'm going to be dividing what I have here by 2. So I'm going to divide whatever I have here. This is the difference between my hip and my lap. So I'm going to divide it by 2. This is half of it. Alright. Then I'm going to, from here now, I'm going to connect it. From here, you come out by 1 inch to make it curvy. So here now, connect it. Alright, so I've connected my line, my lap line to my hip measurements. Alright, so this is what I have. Now, if I want to put my zip fly together with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be marking 2 inches at my hip line, at my waistline. I'm going to be marking 2 inches, connect them together. Alright, then I'm going to be dividing what I have from this my lap line now to my half of the difference between my hip and lap line. So I have 4. This is at 2 inches here. Then from here now, I'm going to be curving it in to this point. Sorry, we don't need this for work, so this is what I'm going to just do. Simply connect from this line you have here, from this yoke line into half of your lap line and hip line. All right, connect it. This is your fly. So now the next thing we are going to be doing is we're going to be connecting this. So this is what I'm going to do now. This is what I have. Then from this point now, I'm also going to come down. Then I'll go ahead and cut this piece out. So this is my front piece. I'll be using this front piece of mine now to cut out my back piece. Now the first thing first is to fold this my fly or zip allowance inside. Okay, so I folded it. I'm working with it to cut out my back. So now there's another thing I didn't talk about while we were creating our lap, the front parts, when we are drafting it. This is my lap line. All right, so how did I come about my lap line? My lap line is my round thigh, the upper part of my thigh, the round part of it. So what I did was to divide it by 2 and add 1 inch to it. That's how I got my lap line. All right, that's my round lap, which is this measurement that is here. So now we're going to be talking about the back piece. First thing first, I placed my front on it, then I go ahead and folded in my fly or my pockets allowance. I folded it in. All right, the next thing I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to divide my waist by 4. All right, or better still, you mark your dart line. Where is your dart line on your waist measurement? So from this center point, I'm going to mark in 4.5 inches. That is my dart. Okay, then this 4.5 inches now, you divide it by 2. I have 2.25 inches. Half of my dart is 2.25 inches. So from this 2.25 inches, I'm going to go up by 2.25 inches. You also go up by whatever you have here, you go up by it. Or you can decide to go up by only 2 inches. So I'm going up by 2 inches from this my half of my dart line. I went up by 2 inches, which is here. All right, then coming to my lap line, I'm going to mark in 2 inches down. Then I'm going to connect it together. So now remember we divided the dart by 2 inches, all right, which we got the center point, which is here. All right, the next thing I did was to mark 2 inches on this area of my short. I've marked my 2 inches. Then I'm going to be connecting, making a curve here. All right, so this is done. Now this 2 inches I have here, I'm going to be transferring it to this point. So I'm going to be marking my 2 inches here. So from this waistline, I went up by extra 2 inches. Then I'm going to be connecting it to my waist. Okay. So this is what I have. Whatever you have here, you transfer it to this point. Now bring it up, then connect it together. All right, so that's what I did here. I went up by 2 inches. That's half of my dart I have here. Went up by 2 inches, then connected it to my waistline. So now I'll go ahead and cut out my back. Then I also trim out this other part of it. So this is my back piece and this is my front piece. So this is for my zip. Okay, so this is what I have. Then this thing is ready for stitching. I will now go ahead to stitch our shorts. So now the next thing I'm going to, this is my shirt and we're going to be working on the pockets first. So what I did was I placed my, this is my pocket, all right. The width and the length is 14 by 14, so all round is 14. Okay, so now I placed it on top of my front piece of my short pants. All right, so right side to right side, that's what I did. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is you need to make sure that this aligns together here at the tip. So the next thing I'm going to do now is from here, now I'm going to be marking 2.5 inches. So this is my 2.5 inches and I'm going to give it a small notch, or you can decide to leave it. I'm going to give it a small notch here. Then from there I'm going to be coming down by 7 inches here, this area. I'm also going to notch it a little. So what do I do now? I'm going to go ahead and use the machine and run a stitch. So from this 2.5, I'm going to be connecting it to these 7 inches I have here. Okay. So go ahead and run a stitch from here to here. Close this up first. So after stitching on it, this is what I have. Okay. Now I'm going to be trimming this off because I'm not going to be working with it. It's of no use to me. I'll go ahead and trim this. SS up. Now I'm going to open this. This is what I have. Then you kindly carry it this way. Alright, so this is what we'll be having. This is what the pocket is going to look like. So now I'm going to be holding it down with my pin here. So this is what the pocket looks like. Then we're going to flip it over. So when you turn the back, this is what the back is going to give you. Now we have an opening here. So what do? You just put your hand in this way. And stitch on it to close it up. Alright? Then your pocket is ready. So now this is what the pocket looks like. This is what the back will look like, the inside. And this is what the front looks like. Now, one thing there is, if you want to top stitch, if you want to make a top stitch on the top of your pocket, fine, that is up to you to do. But if you don't want to, you leave it this way. Alright, so after doing this, I'm going to, so now the next thing I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be attaching my zip. That's what we'll be working on. So these are my two fronts. Okay, now I'm going to join them together like this way, like right side facing each other. That's what I want ahead to do. This is the zip I'm working with, so I'll go ahead and place it here. I think it should be 8 inches long or 7 inches long. So from this point now, I'm going to be marking 7 inches. This is where it's going to be stopping. Alright, so now what next do I do? I'm going to be running a stitch from this point now. From this point, this is where my zip is stopping. Remember, we added 2 inches for our zip allowance. Okay. So I'm trying to arrange this properly. So from this point now, I'm going to be running a stitch till I get in here. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go ahead now and do. I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch on it. So from here, I will stitch it to close it up. Having done that, I will go ahead and open up my short. So I've stitched on it and opened it up. This is what I have. So now I'll be attaching my zip to this. So now this is going to be my cover. Though you can decide to use this side as your cover, but me, I'll be using this side as my zip cover. Okay, so first thing first I'm going to do is I'm going to be working on this area. So now I'll open it up this side, place my zip here, add my 2 inches, then I'll go ahead and run a stitch on this. So go ahead, run a stitch on it. So now I'm done running a stitch on it. This is what I have. I'll go ahead and open it up this way. Then I'm going to top stitch on it. I've opened it up. Alright, then go ahead and top stitch on it. So I'll go ahead and top stitch. So after top stitching on it, this is what I have. Now I'm going to be making use of this cover to close up the zip area. Okay, so now this is what we have for our shorts. For this area now, I'm going to be marking 1 inch. I'm working with 1 inch. I want to close this part up. This is my zip cover. And at this point, I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch. Okay, this is to get my curve. I'm curving it in to this point. So now go ahead and run a stitch on this and close it up here. So this is what we have. So now the next thing I'm going to be doing is, I've joined the 2 sides, that's the back and the front together. This is what I have. So I'll go ahead and run a stitch on it and close it up. Then for the back here, I'm going to be joining this back side together. Okay, I'll be joining it together. Okay, first of all, let's run a stitch from here. Then I'm going to join it from this lap line. I'm going to join it to this end. I'm not touching this area, it's going to be open. All right, so you join this. So for my back piece now, I want to go ahead and shape this. So what I did was, from here I marked my waist measurements. From this point I marked my waist measurements. Then I'm going to be stitching on it. So this is what I'm going to stitch on now. Alright, so I'll go ahead and run a stitch from here and I'm going to close it up. So now for this other part of it, this crotch area, I'll go ahead and run a stitch on it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stitch this. So this is what my shirt is looking like. Okay, now for this front part now, I'm going to be reducing the waist measurements. I'm going to be putting a pleat on it. All right, so how do I go about it? This is my front piece. And I'm going to get the center. I'm going to mark and get the center of my front. So I have 11 inches. Okay, and 11 inches divided by 2 will be giving me 5.5 inches. So this is the center point of my shorts. So now I'm going to be pleating this. I'm going to be making a pleat on it here, because if you look closely on that picture, we have a pleat on our shorts. Okay, so now I'm going to remeasure my waist measurement. Okay, so this is what I have. After making a pleat, I make sure that my waist measurement is corresponding. So I'll go ahead and secure it with a pin. So the pleat can either be this way or it can be the other way around. So the same thing I did here, I'm also going to do it on this part of my shorts. After making my pleats, the next thing I went ahead to do is I'm going to take the round of my short, what I have. Okay, so that's the next thing I'm going to be doing. I'm going to measure around what I have my shorts. The waist measurement. So I have 37 inches. 37 inches. I'll go ahead and cut out a band that is going to be 38 inches long. Okay, so I'm adding extra 1 inch to it. So now I went ahead to cut out my band. My band is 2.5 inches bold on a fold. Alright. Then the next thing I did was I went in and folded in one part of the edges. I went in and folded it in. Okay. So now I'm going to open it up this way. I'll go ahead and run a stitch on it here and turn it out. The same thing I will do to this other part of the head. Okay. I also run a stitch on it and turn it out. So now I'm done. I'm going to be attaching it. So after pulling it out, this is what I have. I'm going to be attaching it to my shorts. Okay, remember we're having a pleat here. So I'll go ahead and attach this, pin it down, then run a stitch on it. So after stitching on it, this is what we have. Okay, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is,
so guys, this is what we have after we are done. This is our final results and the finishing. Thank you so much for staying with us. Just subscribe.
Invisible stitch. Yeah, so that's what I'll go ahead and do. Then we'll now talk about